Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Reardon and this is an episode of Debunking. Let's jump right in with the first one, which is a TikTok trend that's sending kids to hospital with severe burns. It's called Tanghulu. If you've never heard of it, it's a street food that originated in China, and normally it's made by washing and drying fruit, threading it onto skewers, and then putting sugar and water into a pan and adding a little glucose or corn syrup. You don't have to add it, but it helps stop crystallization. Stir until the sugar is dissolved, then brush down the sides of the pan with a wet pastry brush to get rid of any sugar crystals, and then you leave it to boil unstirred. And as the water evaporates away, the sugar gets hotter and hotter, and once it gets to 149 Celsius or 300 Fahrenheit, it reaches what is called the crack hard stage. If you drop some of this into a glass of cold water, it will set instantly. And now you carefully dip the fruit skewers into the hot mixture and you get a thin coating of crack hard sugar on the outside. And it gives you that pleasing crunch when you eat it.
Grape. Yum, it's good.
Now, of course, any candy recipe that you need to heat sugar up to the crack hard stage is going to put you at risk of burns because it is really, really hot. But in this case, it's not the Tanghulu recipe itself that's the issue, it's the method that's being promoted on TikTok that's putting people in danger.
Apparently you can make Tanghulu in the microwave.
And we're gonna microwave this in 30-second intervals until it's an amber brown color.
Put that in for like 8 minutes and now it should be really bubbly and like a dark amber color. And it came out really good.
Beautiful.
It's easy, crunchy, and satisfying.
That's right, the videos are telling you to make this really hot sugar mixture in the microwave. And that's a problem because when you're getting up to such high temperatures, the ideal container for that is a metal saucepan. And metal can't go in the microwave. So that leaves us with a couple of options. The first being plastic. And if a kid was to grab a plastic measuring jug and put that in the microwave, at best you're going to get a measuring jug that deforms and goes out of shape and is going to end up going in the bin. This measuring jug looks like it's totally fine, but go to grab it out of the microwave and you'll get bad burns as that hot sugar pours out the bottom. Let me show you that on a thermal camera. It just melts through the plastic and pours out. This one is already not looking good. If we leave it a moment, you can see now it's starting to bulge. And when I pick it up, the whole bottom just came out. So now there's hot sugar and melted plastic everywhere. Now you already know that if you were to take half a cup of boiling water and spill that on your skin, you'd end up with a really nasty burn. So to show you how much worse this is, let's compare boiling water side by side with hot sugar. 3, 2, 1, pour. You can see the hot water drains off while the hot sugar sticks. Now with burns, the longer it's at a high temperature, the deeper the burn goes and the more tissue damage that it does. Let's have a look at that through the thermal camera. 3, 2, 1, pour. Look how hot that sugar is. And even if I pick it up, the sugar doesn't just come off, it's stuck. You have to physically take it off. And even 5 minutes later, when I checked with the thermal camera, it was still really hot, which is why if you do get a burn, it's really important to, as soon as possible, get that under cold running water and keep it there for 20 minutes to take the heat out of that burn so it doesn't keep doing damage further down to deeper layers of the skin. The Royal Children's Hospital said here in Australia and New Zealand, in the last month, there have been 15 kids admitted to hospital with burns from this trend.
About a third of these children are requiring grafting, and so then their recovery can be a lot longer. And then in addition to that, they'll need scar management.
Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, well, they should have used a microwave-safe jug. It's their own fault if they just used a random measuring jug. So let's test that out. This one says it's microwave safe, and if we flip it over, it says, warning, overheating oils, fats or sugars may cause product to melt, risk of burn injury. Microwave safe plastic is not made with such high temperatures in mind. Plastic melts at those temperatures. This one at first looks like it's okay, but when you pick it up, you can see the whole bottom is deformed and very quickly a stream of hot sugar starts pouring out the bottom. So if you can't use plastic for this recipe, that leaves you with the option of glass or ceramic. Now, if you're a regular on this channel, you will have watched the Why is Pyrex Exploding video. Certain types of glass and some ceramics cannot handle thermal shock, which is a sudden change in temperature. So if you put it in the microwave with the sugar and you've heated it up to a really high temperature and then you pull it out and put it on a cold bench top or on something that's damp or just something that's substantially colder than that measuring jug, it can explode, which is exactly what's happened to some of these kids in hospital, and they've ended up with burns on their stomach. Now, this TikToker does warn that that can happen.
And now make sure the bowl you use can go in the microwave, because if it can't, it will explode. That is the last thing I think anybody wants.
Just using a cup that says microwave safe is not going to guarantee you are safe. They are not designed for such high temperatures. They don't have sugar work in mind. And I can tell from reading the comments on these videos that it's not just an issue here in Australia and New Zealand. Listen to these. I saw someone do this and it broke the measuring cup thingy. Last time I made Tanghulu in the microwave, I cracked the bowl. And Abby said I had to go in the ambulance because of it. 2nd degree burn. Do not make Tanghulu in the microwave. If you want to make it, it needs to be done in a pan on the stovetop. And if you're a kid, you need adult supervision. Covered in shoes and preferably silicone gloves to give you a little bit of protection, because it is super, super hot. All right, next, moving on to a trend in Korea.
3, 2, 1, 간다!
Those green things are toothpicks made from cornstarch and potato starch, and people are deep frying them and eating them. It became so popular on shorts that the Food Ministry in Korea issued a warning saying starch toothpicks are not an edible product. Their safety has not been verified. Please do not eat. This one seems fairly obvious to me, but I guess if you've never been at a food production facility, you may not realise the number of tests that have to be done along the way on the production line. And then if there is any contamination, that whole batch can be pulled back from shelves. But those tests don't have to be done if it's not a food safe product. It's nowhere near the same amount of hygiene and stringent testing and all of those things going on. So while it might be made from cornstarch or potato starch, it doesn't have to be food grade level, and it doesn't have product safety testing to make sure it's okay to ingest. It's the same issue with eating the packaging peanuts.
Since they're made of cornstarch, essentially what Cheetos are made of, I decided to try one. It sticks to the top of my mouth and it kind of tastes like popcorn.
I've been eating these packing peanuts for like the last 10 minutes. I'm not even kidding.
They kind of taste like Cheetos, but without the cheese.
If you really want to eat some puffed up starch, you need to avoid things that were not intended as food and grab some rice noodles and just dry as they are, put them in some oil and fry them, and they will puff up nicely for you. Next, we have a question from NG, and he wants to know, is there really a plastic lining on Coke cans and drink cans? And if so, is it bad for you, and should you be having drinks in glass bottles instead? Now, that's a really good question. If I take a can of Coke and sandpaper the paint off it, then open the top and put it into a caustic solution to dissolve the aluminium, and then wait a while, and then realize it would be a good idea to add some string to support it and wait a while longer, eventually the bubbles slow down. And now that the metal is gone, we can see this clear plastic layer. Let me just give that a quick rinse in water to get the caustic soda off so I can touch it, and look at that. It is a really thin layer that gets sprayed onto the inside of the can during manufacturing. Let me tip out the Coke. This plastic layer is a food grade epoxy, and it's there to protect the can from being eaten away by the drink. Obviously you don't want the can failing and the drink spilling everywhere, but you also don't want metal from the can leaching into the drink or into the food, and then you consuming that metal, because that wouldn't be good for you. On the flip side of that, this epoxy resin that's been used since the 60s has BPA in it, which has been leaching into the food. Now, it's known that BPA is not good for humans in large amounts. What is being debated at the moment is what level of BPA consumption is safe. Back in 2015, the FDA set the safe level, or the daily limit, as 5 micrograms per kilogram body weight per day. They said that was a safe amount, and according to the studies that were available at that time, that would not cause any issues to human health. Now, if we say a person weighs 70 kilos, so then they can have 5 times 70 micrograms per day, so 350 micrograms each day without issue. That would be about the weight of 7 grains of sand. Because we're talking about such teeny tiny amounts, I want you to imagine that I have zoomed in on those 7 grains of sand. Here they are. This is the amount per day if you weighed 70 kilos that the US says is safe of BPA to consume. Now, keep in mind they set this back in 2015, and there has been a lot more studies on BPA done since then. In 2023, the European Food Safety Authority did their own review of all the current studies, and they have set the safe amount per day if you weighed 70 kilos to be this much, which is substantially less than that much. Here we go. Just pop that one there. One of their main reasons for setting it so small was a study that showed an effect on the autoimmune system and causing inflammation at amounts that were higher than that. So they said it needs to be really low. Now, Germany disagreed because they said the inflammation, yes, that study was there, but that's not linked to a disease as such. So they said just ignoring that study and looking at the other studies, it should be set to this amount per day, which is still a lot less than that amount. So regardless of which way you look at it, there is cause to think this should probably be reviewed, which is what's actually happening at the moment. The US is reviewing, and we'll have to wait and see what they come up with. So how do these amounts compare to what you're actually getting in food or in drinks? Well, there's a lot of studies going back in 2010 that give amounts of BPA in foods. There's not much currently that says what's in foods now. There's a lot that says it's reduced since then due to consumer pressure. The only studies I could find were from overseas, and they showed promising results. So if we have a look, one study looked at cans of drink, and they had 17 different cans, including cola and iced tea, and majority of them came out at 0 for BPA, which is great. There was a couple of them which were iced coffees and iced lattes, which came out at 3.3 micrograms of BPA per can. They also looked at tuna, and again the majority of these little cans per can came out at 0 micrograms of BPA per can, which is great, but one brand they tested came out at 10 micrograms per can, so there's quite a bit of variation there. They tested some little tins of tomato paste, and it came out at 0.5 micrograms per can, and they tested some beans, and they came out at 2.2 micrograms per can. Now these are the highest ones that were on the list that I could find. So if this amount is safe per day, these are great, not an issue at all. If this amount is safe per day, then we've still got some work to do. If we look at these 2 cans of tomatoes, this one says it's BPA free. If we take half the labels off, you can see they're both metal cans. If we open them up, they both have a plastic liner. So the concern is, as manufacturers have responded to pressure and moved away from BPA, what are they moving towards, and are they safe? It's taken us 20 years of studies to figure out that BPA was not a great idea. So it's going to take more studies going into the future. As a general piece of advice, probably limit the amount of plastic packaging you have for foods, particularly foods that get heated up in that plastic, because that's when the chemicals seem to leach out and into the food. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things that tell the algorithm that you liked the video. With thanks so much to my amazing patrons for your support of this channel. It's really appreciated. Make it a great week by being kind to others, and I'll see you on Friday.